Joining us live now is the Deputy Nationals leader, David Littleproud. David, good to see you. Thanks for your time this morning. We will start off with that developing news overnight. China and the Solomon Islands pushing ahead with the security pact. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, this is deeply concerning, these developments, but what we can take some solace out of is that the Prime Minister of the Solomon Islands has made it clear that there will be no military bases on the Solomon Island and that Australia will be its preference in terms of supporting them for security matters. We will be their priority in terms of who they turn to. But this is a development that gives us and the rest of the Pacific family great concern, and even our allies in the United States. And it's one that we'll work through as a Pacific family with the United States to make sure that we protect our interests across the Pacific and that we understand the real and live threat that this poses, not just to Australia, but to the rest of the Pacific family as well.
But do you really believe Sogavare when he says he's not going to build a military base for China? Because isn't he in the CCP's pocket, so now he just has to do what he's told?
Well, we've got to appreciate the Solomon Islands is a sovereign nation that gets to determine its own future, but it's part of a Pacific family that we broadly have worked together to make sure that we understand the influence in which China is trying to impose and the threat that that poses not only to Australia and New Zealand but to other Pacific nations, and to make sure that we all have a role to play in that, and so too does the United States, and their concern on this is evident, that we need to make sure that we collectively work together. Now, I'm not going to pass gratuitous advice or judgment from this far away on the Prime Minister of Solomon Islands. I don't think that's constructive. I think what is constructive is continue to have dialogue with the Prime Minister and their government to understand that any military base on the Solomon Islands would pose a real clear threat to the Pacific family and to Australia.
Well, you're a Queenslander. Potentially you're looking at a military base about 1,700 kilometres off the coast of Townsville.
Well, this is exactly what Australians need to understand. The world is changing. You only have to look at what's happened in the Ukraine. You need strong leadership. You need the ability to draw a line in the sand and to work with your coalition partners to make sure that that line in the sand is made real, and that there's understanding that if you cross that line, then there are consequences. And that's why we've been working with the AUKUS arrangement. The AUKUS arrangement wasn't just about subs. This was, for in fact, these types of events. We were thinking far in advance. The Prime Minister was able to get an agreement that for generations Australians will look back on and go, has kept us safe. There's a new world order trying to appear here, and how we draw that line now will determine the freedoms and liberties that we enjoy now and how much of those we can enjoy in the future because of the actions we take now. And that's the important thing to appreciate. You need strong leadership to be able to work through this complex issues, continue to use diplomacy, but make sure there's a real understanding that if a line is crossed, then so too will be the actions back from our side.